What's good, YouTube? This is Dad Kelso here coming at you with a new YouTube video today. This is my gaming story. I'm going to walk you through my journey as a gamer over the years, and I want to see how you guys experienced things like I did, or maybe had different experiences than I did down in the comments below. Leave a like if you like this kind of content, and let's get into it. I was born in 1991 and I started playing games at 3 to 4 years old. I got this hand-me-down set from it was a Super Nintendo and SNES. Got it from my older brother. It had games like Turtles in Time, Killer Instinct, Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country, Street Fighter, Zelda, Mortal Kombat. Had some dumb casino game my mom liked to play like Caesar's Palace or something. It was a lot of fun, and it was really good for a young kid to start with this console, in my opinion, because games were still very, very simple. And I know there's an older generation of gamers before me with the Atari and all that, but this, I think, was the best time to start gaming because the games were so simple. I mean, the hardest game I had was Zelda, and my older brother had to help me with a few things, but for the most part, you could smash the controller and beat Street Fighter, Turtles in Time, Killer Instinct. A lot of these games just smashing the buttons. You could learn the game just by hammering down. You would have your cousin show you a combo on Mortal Kombat for a fatality, and it would blow your mind, and then you drill it. It was a really good time to learn video games, bringing me to 1995 when I got my first console, the PlayStation 1. Now, this is when gaming really elevated for me. I fell in love with my PlayStation. And as the picture you're about to see above, you can see my Super Nintendo pushed over to the side in the thumbnail because as soon as I unboxed the PlayStation, I fell in love. The games that I had with this, I had a ton of demos from Pizza Hut, which is funny because a lot of people remember those. I got Gex, I had wrestling games like Nitro, I had Attitude, I had a bunch of the WWF and WCW games. I had a game called Bloody Roar, which was so fun. It was like an Animorphs fighting game. I had Spyro, Tomb Raider 2, Gran Turismo, Need for Speed, Twisted Metal, Metal Gear Solid, NBA, Madden, Crash, Tony Hawk, Spider Man, you name it. But a lot of these games were great multiplayer games like Need for Speed, Twisted Metal. These were all fun to play with your friends. This is when couch co op was still huge. It was one of my favorite times in gaming. And by now, games were like 20 to 40 bucks. So, my parents weren't rich, but I got most of the things I wanted because they were still somewhat affordable. 97, 99, so I'm like 6 to like 9 years old around here. I got my Game Boy Color and my N64. Now, my Game Boy Color was a Pokemon machine only, and it still is to this day. I love playing red and blue. I was the perfect age for when Pokemon came out. It's probably why most people like me are still in love with Pokemon today. That's probably why they need to start making the games for us again, okay? These little kids don't understand. Just kidding. Pokemon's for everybody. But with my Game Boy Color, I had a few other games like some Metroid and stuff like that, but all I really liked playing was my Pokemon games. For my 64, of course, I had Pokemon Stadium and Snap, but I liked playing Donkey Kong and Mario 64. I loved playing Mario Kart with my friends. Madden was never as fun on it as I liked on my PlayStation. Road Rash was one of my favorite games to play with my friends. Knocking one of your friends off with a 2x4 and watching them rage quit right next to you was one of the best experiences you could ever have in gaming. And the N64 and Game Boy Color, when that was when I mean, I literally went from Nintendo to PlayStation and then back to Nintendo. And I've never ever like I've never ever said this, but I still think the PlayStation 1 was my favorite console overall. But having my Game Boy Color on the road, going to recess, it made it my main console. And that this will be the last time a handheld is like my main console. But that Game Boy Color was everything to me, and anybody on a car trip with a squiggly light will remember that. 2000 came along, Y2K, the world's going crazy because they think that planes are going to fall out of the sky, and we get the PlayStation 2. This is one of the best eras in gaming because it had the biggest library of games. This is when you could go to EB Games, Toys R Us, Walmart, Kmart, and you could just go look at the glass case and you could just pick out a random game, and it was probably going to be a lot of fun. A lot of the games were still made with passion back then, by gamers, for gamers. This is before big money came in, and It was just so fun. Some of the games that I really remember playing are the Dragon Ball Z games, all the Budokais, Rainbow Six. I remember playing GTA 3 and Vice City, MX Unleashed, or Superfly, whichever one it was. I think it was Superfly with Ricky Carmichael. Yu Yu Hakusho had a game, baseball, the MVP one with Manny Ramirez, NFL Street. I'm still playing a lot of like solo, but like this is when solo play started happening more for me. I started to invest more in campaigns, less with like friends. I mean, we still played games together, but it wasn't as much as we did before. The 64 and the PlayStation 1 and the Super Nintendo, I thought really brought the like sit on the couch and play aspect, and the PlayStation 2 was the first console that I started playing way more on my own. But this is also when I started taking gaming much more seriously. I stopped, there was no more button smashing. Now it was me like perfecting games. I didn't want to just be good at them, I wanted to be great at them. And that was kind of hard to play with friends because they'd come over and play a game they'd never played before, and then I had it mastered and they couldn't even touch the controller. Budokai was one of those games. 2001, we get the Game Boy Advance with like Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, which this is my favorite set of Pokemon games, and I still have my Game Boy Advance and my Game Boy Advance SP to this day with all three of those games. I never played another thing on that besides like the Legacy of Goku's and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Like Duelist Kingdom one. I think it was like Worldwide Edition or something. Those were like the only games I really played, but I loved all of them. I got the Xbox around like 2002. I didn't get it at launch. I think that came out in 2001. But I went over to my buddy's house and I played a demo of Halo. Fell madly in love, had to have the console. My parents didn't make a lot of money and games were starting to get increasingly more expensive, but I did everything I could to get this console. Extra chores, extra work with my grandpa. I could not have Halo. It literally changed the way I thought about games. That first person shooter, it was nothing like Rainbow Six. It was so much better. It had a lot of imagination, a lot of cool, space things, and you had Master Chief, and everybody knows Master Chief was so impactful in like 2001 to 2000, and still to this day, everybody loves Master Chief. Games for the Xbox that I remember having a lot. I had Unreal Championship 2, both Halos. The games like Wild Hunt, Dead or Alive was my favorite fighting game. Psyops, if you haven't played it. Otage, Fable. If you never played the original Fable, you missed out. That was so much fun. Crimson Skies. Star Wars had Knights of the Old Republic. Both of them were great. Uh, this game, this era in gaming, 2000 till about 2005, was so good. I cannot even explain to you what it was like to go stand in front of the case at either Walmart or EB Games or GameStop and just look at the wall of games. It was so much fun. Bringing me over to about 2007. So, as you can tell, from the year 2000, I was 10 years old, all the way to about 2005, which is when I'm turning 15, 14 to 15. I ended up joining a band and getting more into girls, and gaming wasn't as important to me going into my high school years. So I didn't end up upgrading from my older consoles to the Xbox 360 until about 2007. And you guessed it, the reason why was for Halo 3. Once I started seeing all the Halo trailers and all the hype for Halo, I was like, man, I'm going to have to break down and upgrade, because up until this point, everything that I had was good enough. My original Xbox, my PlayStation 2, my Game Boy Advance, it had so much of the things I loved. There was no reason for me to get the 360 at launch. So by the time Halo 3 came out, then I was finally excited and ready to upgrade. And this is when multiplayer takes over my life. So Halo 3 comes out, I get my console, and I fall madly in love with how great the multiplayer was for Halo 3. And I fell in love with other games, like Modern Warfare 2. I didn't get in at COD 4, but I fell in love around Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 2. My 360 was nothing but a multiplayer machine. I got into Mass Effect, stuff like that. And there was a lot of great games for the 360, don't get me wrong. The 360 PlayStation 3 era was great. I never considered going to the PlayStation 3, and just because Xbox had Halo, and there was nothing on PlayStation that could stand up to how much fun Halo was. Now, that's not to say there wasn't exclusives that I had to go stay over at a buddy's house to play. Infamous was one of my favorite like solo playing experiences, and I went over to play both Infamous 1 and Infamous 2 on my buddy's PlayStation 3. I did not like playing online over there. He always wanted to play like Call of Duty, and I was like, dude, it takes so long to get into a match. Like, is the PlayStation Network that bad? And that's why coming out of the 360 and playing Halo 3, like, I loved that multiplayer experience so much that I couldn't even trust switching back to PlayStation. Like, I that kind of locked me in as an Xbox person, for better or for worse. Obviously for worse, because Xbox ends up going to shambles after the 360. But 2013 comes along, and I'm graduated by this point. You know, there's no more band. I'm out of the band. Gaming is back to my main source of entertainment and leisure time. And this is when I ended up upgrading to the Xbox One and the 3DS. Now, the 3DS will always have a soft spot in my heart. It's always going to be behind the Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Color. But this is what really brought me back to Pokemon, because I stopped playing. I'd never got a DS, so I didn't play Gen 4 or Gen 5. I have obviously later through emulators. But Pokemon X and Y Gen 6 really brought back my love, mainly because they brought back some Kanto starters and Mega Evolutions were sick, and my favorite Pokemon Blaziken got a Mega Evolution. So I had to play. Came with, Ruby and Sapphire got their Alpha Ruby and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, so that was also a huge plus. But once again, my Game Boy was just a Pokemon machine. I did not play another thing on my 3DS, and I know a lot of you people are probably screaming right now saying, how could you not play? It was such a great console. It just wasn't that great for me. The Xbox One, that is when I noticed that I should have switched to PlayStation 4. This is, in my opinion, the one of the worst eras of gaming. I'm sure PlayStation 4 people will say it was really, really great, but this is when everything starts to go downhill. And I would say, even if I had a PlayStation 4 at this time, I would have still been highly disappointed. By this point, big money has rushed in. The end of the 360 and PlayStation 3's life going into this. This is where we start to see battle passes instead of like DLC. We start to see a bunch of RNG loot boxes. This is when gaming to me takes a huge nosedive. It wasn't until this point that I started seeing things like skill based matchmaking. I started seeing battle passes or campaigns requiring an online connection. This is when I started noticing that they were gatekeeping the gaming experience from other people. So, the main reason I never switched from the Xbox One to the PlayStation 4 was, one, I was already so invested in my Xbox account, and two, I was already committed to Halo was my favorite multiplayer experience. I just didn't know we were never going to get another good Halo after Bungie left. I fell madly in love with the Destiny series, obviously, because I was a little Bungie whore. But I loved playing it. I put so many hours into Destiny 1, and the way that they spoon fed the content for that game, it was the first game that I remember falling in love with that was broken from the minute you played it. The game came out half released, bugs everywhere. It was a super fun game, but the content that it dropped with was so small. I can remember playing, it felt like 3 months on a fourth of a game. And then you could even like break the game and see how there was missions already installed in the game that they were gatekeeping from us to spoon feed to us later for more money. It's definitely when I noticed that gaming just started to become more of just how to get more money continuously out of you and less of passion projects. People making games that they loved for gamers, that loved gaming. PlayStation Network continued to be ass, in my opinion. Even though I didn't have one, you always seen it get hacked. You always seen they were down. You always seen they had high wait times. And then Xbox had zero exclusives. It was just basically they focused on the Kinect, which everybody seemed to collectively hate, me included. It was just a lost era. And then we get to where, we upgrade for seemingly no reason in 2020. 2019, we get the Switch. Once again, it's just a Pokemon machine for me, but this time Sword and Shield it's a fun game with a lot of content, but it is, if you were like me and you grew up playing the original games, it's hard to have your rival heal you right before a battle, or Victory Road be one hill with three trainers, or you got four different people that give you different XP stuff, or you get candy that can just nuke your Pokemon up to a level 100. It's just not the same experience. So Scarlet and Violet, Sword and Shield, Legend of Arceus, all the games that come out on the Switch, they're just enough to scratch my itch for loving Pokemon, but nothing more. There's no soul to those games, in my opinion. I don't go back to play them. I always give them the one run through because I love to see the new starters. I love to see the new Pokemon. But to be honest, Emerald Sea Glass is the best new Pokemon game I've ever played, and it's an emulator ROM hack for Pokemon Emerald where they make it look like Gen 2. Shout out to anybody that had anything to do with that game. It literally renewed my just love for games in general, because I seen that and I was like, man, whoever did this put so much care and thought into it. Absolutely loved it. But 2020, we all go from get the Xbox One S or the PlayStation 5, and literally, do you see a difference? What, the load times are a little faster. I mean, we're at the part where graphically, I don't even see a change. And Tim the Tapman said something about how, he's around the same age I am. I think he's a year older. But as millennials, we've seen all the big jumps in gaming. We've seen from the NES to the PlayStation, to the N64, to the PlayStation 2, to the Xbox, to the Xbox 360, all the way up until now. And I feel like from the Xbox 360 till now, there has been minimal jump. There's no reason for them to sell us a product that literally is not doing anything extra for us. I feel like the experience I had on my Xbox 360 was far better than any experience I've got on the next two gens of consoles, the Xbox One or the Xbox One S. Now, I can understand if a PlayStation person is saying, nope, I love the exclusives I got on the PlayStation 4. You're wrong about that generation, but there's no way you're going to look me in my ocular sockets and tell me that your PlayStation 5 or your Xbox One X is revolutionary to gaming. We could tell the story of gaming and leave those consoles out, and nobody would be missing out on anything of value. There hasn't been any one game I can point to that says, yes, that's what we're going to hang our hat on. And Warzone ruined gaming, in my opinion. These battle royales, they have made it to where everyone wants to cheat now. The Cronus Zen is one of the top selling things on Amazon. You see them for sale used in GameStops, and that's soft cheating. There's also people on PC that are using walls, complete aim bots, flying around the map, super speed. They can go underneath the map and shoot you. It's insane what these hackers will do and what great links people have done to hack. That's going to be pretty much it for my Unk rant, because as you can tell, we're at present day now. I just wanted to see if anybody else feels like me that the gaming industry has severely dipped. I'll be a gamer for life, but I just want to know, where does it end and where do we start to see progress again? I'm almost to the point where I just want to bunker up with all my old games and all my old consoles and forget about the way they do the new gaming. I mean, they don't come out with any passion anymore. And that's going to wrap it up for me, guys. Tell me down in the comments what you guys think. Love to hear from you guys. Have a great day. Kelso out.